to it to make sure that you can have your lineup balanced and really try to snowball these matches in your favor.
Yeah, absolutely. And our first match of the day will be HitGirl versus Hyped. Now, HitGirl, we didn't know too much about him to start things off, but he had one of the closest matches in the round of 8, at least in the winner's bracket. So it's pretty hard to say whether or not he should be here because of his name power or the fact that he just got unlucky and maybe he could have been easily in the winner's round too, and this was a different situation. But Hyped, on the other hand, is a guy that's gotten a lot of attention recently for his deck building, his play, a lot of other factors coming into why he's on Tempo Storm. But yet he hasn't had the consistent results yet that you expected out of a Colento or out of a Nyria or Firebat. Like those guys, when they perform in tournaments, they've always been placing high, and Hyped only has about 1 or 2 finals to his name. So he's definitely looking to try to make his mark as soon as he can.
Yeah, Hyped is sort of it's really interesting from him. Like you would expect to see more results, but frankly, he just hasn't played that many tournaments. Colento is, I mean, those guys in Strife Crow, those guys play a lot of tournaments. They've been playing for a very long time. And Hyped, he was a ladder player for just a long time. That's all he wanted to do was play ladder. His goal was just to be the best at that, and he did that. He was the #1 seed in NA. He had multiple accounts in top 10 simultaneously a lot of times, and no stranger to competing at that level too. He was also a very high World of Warcraft player. And in pretty much just every game he's ever touched, he strives to be the best that he could possibly be. And that's something that you're also seeing reflected in his Hearthstone play. Of course, in tournaments, it just hasn't been the case, but that's going to be the case with a lot of card games. You see a lot of big-name players who don't always put up big results. If you come from Magic, John Finkel's one of the best Magic players of all time. Multiple Pro Tour wins. He's won the World Championships, but sometimes he'll be knocked out of day one. It's just the way it works.
Yeah, that's Hearthstone for you. And of course, people look at result. And I hate to bring up Colento again, but who am I kidding? I love talking about the guy. But to re-emphasize, Colento wasn't always a dominant player either in the Hearthstone scene. When he first came on, people said he doesn't know how to play tournaments. He knows how to play ladder. He can get great results there. It took a little bit of time before he was able to translate those results finally to the tournament scene. So perhaps this is an opportunity for Hype to climb through the loser's bracket. It seems to be what Tides of Time likes to do. Tides always goes through the loser's bracket to try to perform well in these online cups, so maybe it can work out for him. To start things off, it seems like we're going to have our first bans. HitGirl takes the Hunter away from Hyped, and Hyped doesn't seem to fear the Hunter at all. In fact, he's banning the Warlock instead, and for good reason. Once again, staying consistent with his game plan, and Warlock bans seem to be more than reasonable in today's metagame.
Yeah, I think with Hunter being such a predictable force in your opponent's lineup, Hype's lineup looks like it wants to take advantage of that with a rogue that we saw yesterday. Had 2 Earthring Farseers, is really based on board control and pressing for your advantage. And again, for those of you out there who think that Hunter will beat Rogue, there are versions of Hunter that will beat Rogue. And the matchup, even in the ones where Rogue has an advantage, it feels a lot closer than it actually is. Hunter always will get the Rogue low on HP, but it fails to actually kill their opponent. Like the Rogue always has like the one turn earlier the Hunter usually has, despite how close the life totals are. And Warrior, of course, very strong against Hunter. If Hunter doesn't find a turn 6 Savannah Highmane, Warrior I think has a very clear advantage in most of those games. And even on a turn 6 Savannah Highmane, it just it evens out a little bit. And Druid can be kind of weaker to Hunter, but it's definitely not out of the question. And we saw he had 2 Sunfury Protectors and 2 Defenders of Argus, and he's also running Ancient Watchers. And I believe he was running Spectral Knights. To me, if you're running the 4 Taunt Givers, it seems a little bit obscure to not be running Spectral Knight, and that alone can win the game versus Hunter because they have no interaction with it with their small disruption spell. So a lineup that's obviously aimed towards that and then trying to finish it off from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And Hype's also bringing some weird decks, right? Like he's bringing some funky curveballs. If that works out for him in his favor, perhaps he can surprise his opponent, but I'm pretty sure HitGirl has also done some research on what Hype's bringing. Harrison Jones also seems to be one of those cards, those MVP cards that people are bringing to the tournament because they sense a lot of weapons, and some people are even bringing 2 weapon removals, not just Harrison Jones.
Yeah, that seems to be like the really big standout for this tournament was how many weapons are getting played. And we've seen a Warrior class in almost every single lineup so far. And we saw Lothar yesterday. He had an Ooze and a Harrison in his Hunter deck, which is really unconventional. And you even see here, Hyped has a Harrison Jones in his Miracle deck. And, this Miracle deck, it's not quite as all-in as all the other ones we've been seeing lately. Like, we saw him play Cold Light Oracles. at WCA and at Stage 2 in BlizzCon. And in this one, I don't even know if he has Shadow Steps. I don't even know if we've seen that card from him yet. I know there's at least one player that we've seen playing Rogue that we saw no Shadow Steps and he went through almost his entire deck.
Yeah, it's tough to say. I mean, Shadow Steps feels like they have a lot less utility when you have things like Violet Teacher. You're trying to get Cold Bloods in for the damage. There's just no space.
Yeah. You're just playing
not even
like a
going
value
for, like,
deck.
crazy stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, you're just playing like a value deck at that point.
Yeah, makes total sense to me. Well, overall, it seems like the Rogue versus Shaman still, without Shadow Steps and without that Leroy Burst, you still have lots of options at your disposal to take control of the board. And the fact still remains that unless you have a direct answer to the Gadget Zan, whether it's Loatheb or a Spell-Powered Lightning Storm, they still have the advantage of drawing a bunch of cards and removing the board. But luckily for HitGirl, he's got those answers right in hand, so he can deny a Gadget Zan draw, well, at least increase it so that way it's harder to play those spells. And coming up on the next couple of turns, I think HitGirl might be in a decent position if he can turn up the aggression.
Yeah, this is one of the better starts, I think, for Shaman in general. But Hype's deck, I think it's very well equipped to deal with scenarios like this. Again, he's got 4 3-mana 3/3 cards in his deck, and a lot of times you just play those on the board just to get them active. It's later in the game they can provide you an advantage, and early on they're just 3-mana 3/3s, which is totally fine. So this start is going to get a little bit disrupted, as you're going to see pretty much straight away. Hype's going to start putting some pressure on this stuff. So he's using the Cold Blood out of his hand, and the reason he's doing this is because he wants to activate his combo, and this is just the easiest way to do it. So the SIS-7 agent is it's dealing 2 damage here, but it's effectively he turned the Cold Blood into a deal 2 damage for 1 mana spell, because this is just a 3/3 on its own right, which would have gotten played anyway.
Yeah. And
so this start is going to get a little bit disrupted. If HitGirl can find a Rock Biter or a Flame Tongue Totem really soon, though, I think Hyped could be in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, because then the Shaman can turn on the aggression and activate that egg, which is tricky to deal with, considering that, once more, Hyped wants to be using his spells with his Gadget Zan Auctioneer, but it's, when you have to fight back for the board against Shaman, a lot of times this is what they need to do. Exhaust all their removal, get all their backstab, shivs, eviscerates out of the way, so he can't combo it with the Gadget Zan. Because look, Hype's hand is so small. It's only got a couple of spells, and he's holding a situational card where he's awaiting a Doomhammer if it ever comes. And I don't think HitGirl will be playing that anytime soon.
Yeah, this is a really tricky spot for HitGirl too. He's got a lot of different lines to take, and this is the one that feels most obvious to me. But I don't really know how any of these are going to play out. They're all very, very different for a lot of reasons. Of course, that Van Cleef, it may not look like it, but that's a really problematic card at the moment. And I actually, I think he's just supposed to attack face here and keep going, but he's not too happy to activate his egg, because something just like Eviscerate will clear it out really easily, and actually we've seen just picks up Eviscerate right off the bat. Second Auctioneer is a really poor draw, but he's going to be able to continue to disrupt this board, and this is going to be a very long-winded battle to see who can get an advantage here. Now that these players have a distinct one, and their ranges are still wide open based on what's happened, so the next couple of draws are going to be very important, I think.
Yeah, HitGirl picks up, again, a card that can help impact the board, but he wants to be pressuring the Rogue as much as he can, just like you said. And the board being disrupted also means that these cards in his hand aren't that powerful. Like, Hex is good if you have a board that can Hex and start pushing for damage, and then you can fit in other things with that small little mana, like hero powering. But now he just drops an empty Loatheb before the Gadget Zan Auctioneer. Hype's okay, because he wasn't planning on playing many spells this turn anyways.
Yeah, HitGirl, the reason he drops this down is because he just doesn't have a way to develop his board. So say he just attacks the Edwin Van Cleef and decides to go with Manatide Totem and either Hero Power or Haunted Creeper. He's leaving himself with just an open board. He's going to net a few extra cards from it, but Hyped is going to be able to easily take initiative from him. So I don't know if this is necessarily the right play, because he really can back up his Manatide Totem. If you take a look, say Hyped floods the board with a couple minions. Say he has Violet Teacher and like a spell or so to back it up. HitGirl had the option to just double Lightning Storm after that and continue to try to protect his Manatide Totem, getting a pretty large advantage. But he's chosen to take a different way to protect this. So having initiative is a very good way to protect Manatide Totem. There's no doubt about it. The problem is what he potentially sacrifices from it. So if he needs this LeaseWeb later on, he's not going to have access to it, but he certainly has taken a heavier control of the board with this play. So very different opinions on both sides, and this is one of those spots where the game is going to be so drastically different depending on which one he takes. And I think this one's a little bit more aggressive, so that's probably the one I would tend to take too. I like the aggressive stances.
Okay, Hyped opts to backstab and start drawing with the Auctioneer, but he hits already an interesting juncture where he has to sap a creature to keep the draws going. He draws a second sap. Well, I was hoping to pick up a preparation or something so that way he can continue it, but the good news is he does have Auctioneer number 2.
Wow, he actually has to sap LeaseWeb to protect his Auctioneer. I don't know if I would. I think I just would have let my Auctioneer die to the LeaseWeb there. His goal, of course, is to try to kill this Mana Tide Totem with the Auctioneer, but I don't know if this is going to yield a very high success rate. Given that your opponent has access to, going into this turn, they're going to have Lightning Bolt, Rockbiter, Fire Elemental, Hex, Earthshock. You know, they have so much to fight against this. This may just be kind of his only option, though, in his mind. He's like, well, I just have to get the right card, so I might as well use my Auctioneer to start drawing now. But again, he feels really pressured by this Mana Tide Totem because the Shaman's going to start to take a pretty massive card advantage lead.
There is a possible scenario, though, Nate, if something happens, which is Doomhammer gets destroyed by by Harrison Jones, and he pulls him back into the card count.
Yeah. One of the benefits that HitGirl has right now, though, is that he has so many cards that Doomhammer is not really high on his priority list. Like, he's going to be looking to develop minions before he does anything else. So if he can just run Hyped out of cards, by the time Doomhammer actually comes online, it may just, like, Harrison may not be enough. Yeah, so he's sapping the Haunted Creeper again. He wants to stay as far out of Rockbiter range as possible. He's really trying to minimize his the impact from that card, but again, I still think this might be a little bit just too little too late.
Okay, well, he can kill off his Auctioneer again. It's all about how he wants to do it. Now that LeaseWeb doesn't have to deny draws, he can simply kill off the creature and use LeaseWeb as a way to seal the board. So that way it's protected against Blade Flurry, or Fan of Knives with Spell Power. Like, he would have to combine a bunch of things in order to make sure that his board is doesn't die to that. So I think HitGirl's in a really powerful position here.
Yeah, what do you think of Lightning Storming here? I think that's very reasonable.
Yeah, he's already killed one Violet Teacher, right? So there's only one more Violet Teacher that can flood the board potentially, and you still have second Lightning Storm, so I think it's alright. Yeah,
that's his last Defender of Argus, so I would like to see him save that to really try to use it on like totems or to activate Nerubian Eggs that he may draw, or even just like putting on LeaseWeb to make it a much bigger threat. I really like the lines he's taken so far, and unfortunately for Hyped, it's just, again, he fell behind so early, and being forced to use Sap on LeaseWeb just to try to take out a Mana Tide Totem, really big difference in this game. I mean, look how much pressure this is just provided already. Hype has used everything he has to get to this board state. He's down 13 points of health, and Shaman goes into the turn with 9 cards in their hand. This is not the kind of scenario you want to be in.
No, you don't have answers. You don't have bursts from the hand anymore because his deck stopped running it. So the board means everything to you to get this done, and it doesn't look like he's getting anything done here. Hype's in big trouble. And it looks like HitGirl has so many ways that he wants to do this turn. He can pretty much try and clear as best as he can with Lightning Storm. That's what you have second Lightning Storm for.
Yeah, I don't know if I like the Lightning Storm here more than the Feral Spirit. I think creating a lot of tension on this board is a good idea. Just because the Feral Spirits are kind of expendable, and you have LeaseWeb to follow up things, and you have you just have so much to create board tension. I think you're fine with a few unfavorable trades so you can get to a really favorable spot. So, you'll sacrifice something for a couple of turns, but you've gotten so many cards from the Mana Tide Totem that you're able to do that. So again, if he can just kind of 1-for-1 Hype down at this point, he's going to end this with a pretty distinct advantage.
Well, I mean, Hype still has to fight super scrappy in order to kill things off.
The Violet Teacher's going to be lost here.
Yeah.
He's actually just going to prep for a 1-1 too, because both of his Auctioneers are gone.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that. That's really good awareness of what you have left in your deck and what your game plan is. Because he doesn't have anything left to draw. He has 10 mana, so he's not going to ever need the preparation to force anything out. He just needs the 1/1s right now, and both the lightning storms from his opponent are gone, so he feels much more safe doing this too. This is one of the reasons I think I would have preferred to play the Feral Spirit last turn and just kind of force damage onto those, because they're going to pull spells, they're going to pull minion attacks, and then you're going to be able to have Loatheb after that, or even a Lightning Storm after that. So you force your opponent to commit more to the board before you actually decide to use Lightning Storm.
No, it's a great point. It's a great point. And now the Fan of Knives does some AoE damage, and his Feral Spirits had minimal impact, if anything at all.
A mere 8 mana Fan of Knives.
Yep. It was a very weak consecration.
Spell damage is really being super relevant here too.
Yes.
I'm almost certainly going to use this 3/3 to clear out this Loatheb. I would like to see him use his life total to clear this Feral Spirit as well instead of the 1/1. He really needs pretty much every single minion he can get right now.
Shaman is so far ahead, but yet Hype's playing so scrappy and being able to somehow put damage back on his opponent and have board control.
I'm curious. I would love to know why he chose to not only not attack with the dagger, but also chose to use his 1/1 instead of his life total. Like the difference between going to 15. I mean, he's playing around something like Doomhammer double Rockbiter almost.
Just barely, because that is 16 damage.
Yeah. So like even if he has that, I mean, you're still going to die anyway, right? So I feel like it's just totally fine to pay some life there.
All right, well, it's not over yet. Hype still has to figure out a way out of this one, but he can stop some spells.
Yeah, I'm curious if he's going to play this Harrison or not, or if he feels one of his only ways to win is actually to Harrison away at Doomhammer. Yeah, he's going to conceal.
Yeah, I think that is his only way to come back here. He's not that far into his deck either, right?
No, he's really not. I mean, he's drawn a few cards off Auctioneer. He's drawn something from Azure Drake and Fan of Knives, of course, but you know, it's pretty equal, I think, on number of cards drawn. We saw 3 draws from
Is this lethal, by the way? No, it's not. He's counting damage, but there's no way it is, right? There's
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. It looks like 16 damage to me.
16 damage.
You know
Oh
what that
man,
means.
that was really close.
You know what that means?
It means he's 1 damage off lethal.
I don't understand how that happens so much. That's like crazy to me. I feel like I feel like they designed the game so that way you were 1 damage off lethal so much.
There's got to be somebody orchestrating and watching all these Hearthstone games and making them happen from Blizzard headquarters. I'm gonna troll. Oh, you think you have lethal? Oh, I'm just gonna magically bump up his health counter. Well, you weren't looking. It feels that way.
Not what he needed. I've got a pretty good feeling that HitGirl's gonna win this one. Yeah, Hype's just gonna scoop it up. Yeah, really strong line from HitGirl early on, trying to take advantage of that Mana Tide totem. And again, he had 2 different ways to protect his, and he chose the more aggressive route, and it really paid off for him in spades when choosing the aggressive route. Again, Hype had to sap a Loatheb to try to put pressure back onto the board, which is just not the position you want to be in with Miracle, especially once Loatheb's already taken 3 damage.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's like the way Shaman can win this matchup, because normally the Rogue has so many ways to destroy your board with AoE, with Spell Power, with Blade Flurry. There's not much the Shaman can do unless you can deny the Miracle Rogue, but in this scenario, Hyped had to use all of his resources early on, and he had nothing for his Guided Sand. He wasn't hitting his preparations or his backstabs to keep the chain draws going, and he had no semblance of like real board control to push for damage until like the point where he was just scrapping up with just 1 Azure Drake. So it was too late for him to make a concerted push. And HitGirl is now up 1-0 and Hyped once again. He's starting off the series in a disadvantage, and he's making it hard for himself if he wants to come back, because HitGirl can now switch decks.
Yeah, HitGirl definitely can if they want to, but let's get into game 2 and find out exactly what's going to happen. I don't know what Hyped's best choice is here. You know, again, we've seen a lot of split decisions on whether or not Warrior or Shaman's favored. I think most people would probably tend to say that Shaman's favored, but you know, having played that matchup a lot on both sides, I'm not too. I think it's a lot closer than people give it credit for. And you know me, I think Druid's favored against pretty much everything, but just like a 51% maybe. It's a very playful pick.
Also, you think Paladin's great against most things except Miracle Rogue, right?
I love Paladin, man. That deck's great.
Yeah.
I don't care anyone. That deck's just underrated. The problem with Paladin is that you know, it's too niche. Like people have to be having very dedicated lineups for that deck to be good. If your opponent has a diverse lineup, Paladin really struggles because you have to build it to beat certain kinds of archetypes.
Yeah, totally. Well, no one's really brought Paladin so far. I don't think anyone brought Paladin in this tournament at all.
Yeah, we haven't seen one.
It's too bad because I think its diversity is good, like you said, and seeing Paladin play is so different usually from other control decks that it's a shame that we didn't see it. We're gonna go to Druid versus Shaman, and remember, this is a different Druid that we've seen from most people, not because of the Zombie Chow, but because you'll see cards like Wailing Soul and Ancient Watchers being brought into this deck, and he also has Harrison Jones in here. Oh man,
Really
interesting.
Out this deck to try to beat certain things. I think that this deck actually is probably going to have a pretty good matchup versus Shaman. It looks like it's got some strong early game, and it's got some really big swing turns involved. That Force of Nature, of course, telltale of the fact that Force of Nature is Savage Roar combo is also in here. And again, yesterday we saw Ancient Watchers, we saw Wailing Souls, we saw Sun Fury and Defender of Argus. This deck is really dedicated to taking advantage of its synergy.
Oh yeah, definitely. Now, HitGirl coins out this Nerubian egg. Very smart because he's going to use Rockbiter to kill off this body and create that 4/4 Nerubian instead of just removing the Zombie Chow and using his own life.
Yeah.
So this is a very intelligent move. And Hyped as a result missed the drop. So now HitGirl has the board initiative.
Yep. This is one of those early starts from Shaman that's just... this is part of the reason it's become such a force, is it didn't have access to this before Naxxramas. It was very reactive and really struggled a lot to keep a 1-for-1 going, but in spots like this, it just starts taking advantage of the board. Like this is... I would be very surprised if this 4/4 attacked a Harvest Golem. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I would definitely be pushing for damage here. You have so much follow-up.
Well, Hype does have Swipe to get through these Feral Spirits, and his opponent will be overloaded too, so his best play is usually just limited to a single removal spell or, well, a totem of some kind.
This spot was really kind of tricky too because HitGirl had an opportunity to protect himself from Swipe, but Swipe was going to be pretty bad no matter what. So I actually favor taking the damage there because if your opponent doesn't have Swipe, you're going to end up with a massive damage lead on what's happening.
With that Wailing Soul coming into hand.
You can silence your own Harvest Golem.
I guess you could.
Yeah.
If your opponent played Corruption on it, you can play Wailing Soul.
Harvest Golem silenced from a Wailing Soul. When it dies, doesn't make a sound.
Ah, well, there's Ancient Watcher actually, so that actually isn't so bad. If you just play the Ancient Watcher, you have Wailing Soul next turn.
Yeah. So he's gonna hope that this damage golem actually gets to attack something next turn, so he doesn't have to waste the death rattle on it. So I wouldn't mind seeing him use the Harvest Golem instead of his hero power there to finish off that Drake. But that's a pretty big telegraph that you actually have something like Wailing Soul. I know it seems weird to say, but again, these players saw each other's decks yesterday. This isn't like I would read this for Wailing Soul in a random situation. I would never do that, but the point being that...
Yeah, I know what you mean. Now, this is a little tricky now because the effect that you gain through Wailing Soul is the same exact whether you silence his Harvest Golem or kill it off.
Oh my gosh, I just noticed that HitGirl drew Doomhammer.
Oh, and then there is the Harrison Jones already waiting.
Damn, this could get really bad. Yeah, so this spot I would really like to see him use Keeper of the Grove. And again, deal the last 2 points of damage with his Harvest Golem so he doesn't waste the extra body on that Wailing Soul. But I can see the merits of just using Wailing Soul and attacking the Azure Drake too.
Right.
Maybe
more resilient body.
Yeah, maybe having Keeper of the Grove, had the access to the silence or the 2 damage is a little bit more important. And the other thing too is he doesn't want to commit too much to the board. So if he decides to do it this way, he actually may not even Wailing Soul next turn. He may just try to get more value out of those bodies, trading some damage with them, and before he decides to play Wailing Soul, because then he'll be very vulnerable to Lightning Storm, who will deal a lot of damage.
Is this gonna bait out a Doomhammer?
I don't think so. I think he's got to keep developing, but I certainly don't have a problem with Lightning Storming here. I think it's totally fine. Loatheb I don't have a problem with either, but that's going to be great value then for Hyped.
I was thinking about it. The problem with developing is that that Ancient Watcher still looms as a threat, but that is a second keeper, right?
Right. So I don't think he sees the Ancient Watchers developing anytime soon. And Hype's positioning is really it looks like Defender of Argus is the only thing he would have left to activate it.
Mm-hmm.
I think Lotheb's totally fine here. You know, you want it to try to stop combo pieces, but his hand just doesn't give him that liberty. Like, say he chooses to Feral Spirit or something here. It's just he's just not getting the job done. And there's no way he's gonna hex this Ancient Watcher. There's just no way. Like, it really looks like Defender of Argus is what Hype's going for here. Oh, Innervate's got to be one of the worst draws in this deck.
Yeah. Innervate needs to be drawn either earlier or, you know, in the late stage of the game, it still gives you some reach to play with like 12 mana in one turn, but not in this case.
Let me ask you this. This is an interesting spot. So obviously he wants to play around Lightning Storm, but does he play around Hex instead? Like, he's going to use, it looks to me like he wants to use the Harvest Golem token and the Keeper. Yeah, that's exactly what he's going to do. He's right have his 4/5. So this plays into Hex a little bit more, but I think that that's better for Hype than a Lightning Storm would be, because Lightning Storm seems in the next couple of turns it's going to be a relatively dead card, whereas something like Hex, if he pulls a Hex from him, that opens the floodgate. Like if you draw something like Keeper, I'm sorry, not Keeper, Ancient of Lore, or just any other large minion that's in his deck, those are going to stick to the board more often if the Hex is gone. Doomhammer is like no chance of getting played at this turn.
Nah, not this turn. He was really hoping to get Spell Power Totem, wasn't he? So he can get the Thalanos and the Lightning Storm in.
That's definitely what it looked like.
Roll big.
Yeah, so he's going to have to use Feral Spirit to set up his Lightning Storm next turn, but that's still really good for him because Hype is going to be reluctant to develop, I think, once he has 2-3 health minions on the board. So this may even pull something like a Force of Nature.
Ah, that's interesting. Yeah, Force of Nature.
Well, unless he chooses the Hex.
Okay.
All right, so now I feel like in this position, this will almost always pull Force of Nature, unless of course he draws Black Knight. But Black Knight is actually, it's not bad news for HitGirl because that means his Alec here is going to go uncontested to this card now.
Sure. But then Alec here, oftentimes is just the, like, you can't really hold Black Knight in anticipation for Alec here all the time, can you? Because it is that 4/5 body that challenges the board.
Yeah. I think I would definitely play Black Knight here. There's no reason not to, I don't think. But again, it's not the worst news in the world for HitGirl. He's not like disappointed to see it.
Oh, he gets Spell Power Totem. What did he roll? Oh, he rolled slightly low on Black Knight. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, and this is the sort of scenario we were talking about too, with Hex kind of opening it up. This Sylvanas is going to stick to the board. Really strong back-to-back draws for Hyped.
Okay. Ooh, he draws Lightning Bolt as well, and he just lost it. Well, I'm assuming he's going to be losing his spell power.
He's thinking about he's thinking about whether or not he should go for lethal the next couple turns, because if he takes his opponent to 16, he's got 9+6+ hero power next turn, which would be 16 points of damage. So he's thinking about whether he should attack for 4 or kill his spell power totem. He's trying to weigh which one he thinks is more important. I think I would kill the spell power totem here. You really want to avoid something like a Earth Shock into Fire Elemental.
Yep. Spell power just enables too much of what Shaman does. There's too many things that synergize off of it.
Not only that, but the Flame Tongue Totem. So like, even a Flame Tongue Totem would have counter-killed his Black Knight, and then he wouldn't have the ability to push for damage after that.
Alright, Fire Elemental coming out. He's got to do what he can. Just the fact that just live with Sylvanas being there. That's all you can do. Keep in mind, Hype still is on a Savage Roar draw to end the game, and he gets it! That's going to be game number 2.
My gosh, that is a huge draw right now. Hype has battled what feels like from behind the entire game, and then back-to-back-to-back draws. Give Hype the win here. That is unreal. Wowie. Shaman dies with 13, 17, 21 mana worth of spells in hand. And Harrison still never saw play. This is something that, like, is you know, this is the blessing and the curse of Harrison, is when your opponent is forced to play weapons, Harrison really pays off. But in that scenario, Hyped was basically just fighting with one less card in his hand the entire game. in a spot where he needs to be kind of, turning up his aggression. I mean, aggression was literally how he had to win that game, was just actually dealing damage. So he gets really lucky to pick up 3 very powerful cards in a row. But, I mean, that's just Druid sometimes. We got a very high draw density in the late game, sans the Innervate draws.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, HitGirl isn't stupid either. He knows a lot of people are running Harrison. That's why it's like, even though there are spots where you feel like Doomhammer might be okay, you're going to hold on to it, be more hesitant, play around the fact that you're going to give them a lot of draws. And even overload yourself. So, once again, Harrison just sitting there, being blue-balled, but there's going to be opportunities for him to shine again. HitGirl has Warrior and Hunter, and both those classes also run weapons that are pretty crucial to their game plan.
Yeah, something interesting to note, too, is that these guys are playing at a really high level. So when they've seen as many Harrisons and as many Oozes as they've seen yesterday, it makes them very reluctant to actually play weapons because your opponent just has that many more swing turns against you. So you're actually trying to avoid playing them. It's really influencing not only the approach these guys are going to be having to their game, but like also in some of the smaller spots when playing weapons can be interpreted as favorable. They're reluctant again to do it because of cards like Harrison Jones. They don't want to give away the game, so they're going to be trying to hold on to them as long as they can, unless they feel like their only chance to win is with a weapon, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh wow, Arcane Golem.
Yeah, I was about to bring that up.
This yesterday.
This looks like a very aggressive Hunter deck. Either that, or it could be just his finisher of choice instead of Leroy.
Yeah, I mean, that's a possibility. But Arcane Golem, I think, gives you some signs that this may be aimed at strictly dealing damage as quickly as it possibly can.
Well, this is an interesting draw for Hyped as well. He got Innervate and Coin. Is there any objections to turn 2 Spectral Knight?
Yes and no. Like, I think it's really good to just... Like, I think he can afford to take the game a little bit slower here because his draw's so powerful. Like, this obviously is not a bad play by any means. I think HitGirl happens to have the portion of his range that's like the absolute best against it, which is Iron Beak Owl and Hunter's Mark. And he can just run the order in. Yeah, I mean, this isn't like... It's like, I feel like it's a little bit bad for Hyped because it's kind of like a 2-for-2. Like, he's going to be able to kill the Iron Beak Owl with hero power, but, you know, he's losing Innervate, he's losing Coin, and he's losing Spectral Knight while he has Sunfury Protector and Defender of Argus in his hand. No way he can, like, predict that sort of range, though. Like, that's really narrow. Like, usually you see, I feel like you see either Iron Beak Owl or Hunter's Mark. It's pretty rare I think you see both. So his play makes a ton of sense. But I don't know. I think I almost feel like I would have favored just Keeper the Groving, the Loot Hoarder.
Yeah, I think the board is how Hunter snowballs the early game, right?
Right. So if you take out a minion and you get a 2/4 body out of it, the 2/4 body is a big enough of a threat. Like that's a body that can get Hunter's Mark.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Well, by the way, speaking of targets where you probably want to Keeper, you need to take care of this Undertaker as fast as possible. Even better yet, if he draws with a swipe, that would be the dream.
Yeah, swiped is definitely his best draw here. Instead, he gets another Innervate, which isn't a bad one either. This Undertaker, likely gonna get attacked, I think, by the Sunfury Protector, and then we'll see the Freezing Trap activate, and then he has a choice of whether or not he wants to use Keeper the Grove afterwards. Oh, he's just going to go for face. It's still going to trigger. I mean, it's the same result, I think, but I'd be very surprised if he chose to not silence this Undertaker. Oh, you know what? He could deal it to and Innervate hero power. That's also a pretty reasonable option.
Okay. Well, he opts to go for the silence instead, and HitGirl immediately responds with his bow. And he's going to be killing off his Keeper the Grove, I imagine. Although, keeping it up does tempt the Snake Trap. So,
yeah. So Innervate's still one of the best draws. Yeah, Innervate's still one of the best draws in Hyped's deck. I'm sorry, Swipe. If he draws Swipe, this is really bad news for HitGirl. But even still, it's not like the best position for HitGirl to be in, and not the worst for Hyped. Like, Hyped, I think, likely going to attack face here again. In anticipation of this being, like, a Freezing Trap, of course. I think it's pretty risky to attack a minion in this spot because if it is Snake Trapped, you're going to be really far behind.
Right. There's just too much damage that comes onto the board, and you can't deal with everything.
He also has the option to just not attack. Like, I don't think that's a bad option either. Like, he can just play Azure Drake and look to just fortify his position with either the Sun Fury or the Defender Vargas and go from there.
But then it's snipe and it kills your Azure Drake, and you're like, whoa! God, if that was snipe, can you imagine how tilted he'd be after that?
I feel like Big Game Hunter should be on snipe. He's just
Big Game Hunter should be on snipe?
That's what it feels
kills
like
creatures 7 or 12. Oh
yeah,
my god.
Picture. This guy's aimed at like a Ragnaros.
Oh man.
Still a big push for damage though. Oh, he actually drew swipe of the Azure Drake too. So this turn I think this turn's gonna get really ugly for HitGirl. Again, he's got a pretty big damage lead, but I don't know if it's gonna be enough because with all the taunts in Hype's hand, he's gonna be working off hero powers for a while.
Yep, and he's got 2 taunts as well. So the question becomes then: do you feel more comfortable attacking into a minion because you do have swipe now, right?
Yeah,
so
now you want
to
it.
freezing trap.
Yeah,
right.
Right now you actually want it to be Snake Trap, and this is something that we touched on yesterday too. That is that Snake Trap in this matchup can be a pretty big liability because sometimes you just lose a card. Like this is a spot where the Snake Trap, you know, it hasn't really done anything to negate damage, and it won't be creating any board presence. And even in this spot, Snake Trap would only make 2 tokens too. So he just at this point, Hyped hasn't swiped yet, so HitGirl is just assuming that Hyped doesn't have a swipe, and that's the way he's got to play. And his hand doesn't allow him another option either. He's just got to push for as much damage as he possibly can.
How do you sequence it? So make sure you optimize your damage potential, because there might be a scenario where you kill off the mad scientist, you activate another trap that you didn't want to, and then you lose a little bit of damage. So what's the best sequencing here, Admirable?
I think you attack with Keeper of the Grove, and then you just swipe afterwards. And you probably go and swipe for face because it's a 2 point. It's 2 points on the AoE because of the Azure Drake.
So you're okay with Azure Drake attacking last and potentially getting freezing trap back in the hand?
Yeah, I think so. No. Yeah. It's like, well, you don't necessarily have to attack the Azure Drake here either. Like, if he chooses to play the Defender Vargas or the Sun Fury, he can still just wait another turn and then get his Defender Vargas back in his hand. So looks like it's exactly what he's going to do. Oh, you know what? The other thing, too, is if he's figured out this is Snake Trap, he can just swipe here and force a Snake Trap to be stuck in his opponent's deck. Because now this will never get another Snake Trap. So there's just another Snake Trap in HitGirl's deck that you can draw. Hyped actually chooses just not attack at all either, so he is really trying to trigger a freezing trap with that Defender Vargas.
HitGirl is playing the entire collection of traps. Was that an arcane shot I saw?
Freezing trap, Snake Trap, explosive trap. Yeah, it was an arcane shot that we saw.
In the tracking.
Yeah, it was an arcane shot that we saw on the track. It was Arcane Golem, Arcane Shot, and Kill Command.
Wow.
So 3 traps. It looks like it's going to be on the board for HitGirl. And the order they're going to trigger, a little bit unfortunate, but...
Yeah, freezing before explosive is not what you want.
It's inconsequential
Snake Trap,
here.
of course, is never triggering.
It's inconsequential here that freezing trap triggers first, but in general, you want your explosive trap to trigger first, so it won't, like, return a 2 health minion and then trigger explosive trap.
Right. He's tempted also to kill off the Defender Vargas, right? Instead of explosive trap. Because then, do you want to give back the Defender Vargas?
No, but you just don't have an option at this point. I think this is just the point where Hyped has managed to take control of the game.
Well, he's also on low health, so the Kill Command can go to the face. The explosive trap is doing damage.
This damage is going to add up really quick, though. I don't really see another play here other than just attacking with Defender Vargas first. Like, there's no reason to Force Nature when your opponent has, 65 traps on their side of the board. It's so likely to be explosive at this point. And so he's going to go ahead and trigger that. Freezing Trap's going to return it. Explosive. 2 points of damage, but not a very good scenario, I think, for HitGirl. He's really far behind on the board. And again, this damage is going to add up very quickly. I'd be pretty surprised. I would be pretty surprised if he didn't just choose to play Sylvanas.
Is there the idea that you want to hero power as much as you can to reduce the clock that might be on you?
That's definitely a concern right now, but if you just count up how much damage you can deal, you've got 8 this turn, so you can drop him to 17, and the next turn you have 10 plus 3 plus 6 with the Force Nature, so you can just kill him in 2 turns. So the hero power, I think, pretty irrelevant. Like, outside of 2 kill commands and a hero power, And he's still got to have a beast on the board to be able to use the 2 kill commands, which he just can't do. So if this does not roll Misha or Huffer, he is dead this turn.
Oof.
Yeah. And so when I say he's dead this turn, what I mean is he's going to have to kill command to prevent damage from coming across, and that's going to kill all of his reach potential.
Right, there's 13 on board, 14 with the hero power, and then you just assume there's so many ways to add that old damage, whether it's Druid the Claw, Swipe, Force of Nature, just Savage Roar. You have to use kill command to stay alive.
Well, the other option is to just assume your opponent doesn't have the damage to kill you. He knows Defender's Vargas is there. He knows that hero power is there. So he's looking at +3 damage from the board position. So he could technically live at 1 and just kill command his opponent's face and hope that there's just another point of damage. I think that's actually his best play.
Yeah, it seems like it, because play to your outs as opposed to just play to survive and make yourself at a very low chance to win from here. But we know that Hyped has damage a little bit over to kill his opponent right here with Force of Nature in hand.
Yep.
Yep. All right.
All the tools available. Hype's going to be taking this game 2 games to 1. Really well played Druid game. Very patient, biding his time, and you know, again, this is just Snake Trap can at times be a liability versus Hunter. I'm sorry, versus Druid. And this Druid, I think, is really well equipped to dismantle Hunter. You pay 15 points of life to get just an outstanding control over the board. So outside of just a lot of direct damage, it's going to live through those pushes. And he didn't even have an Ancient Allure to heal up or anything. It was just strictly taunts.
Taunts and strong bodies, and a well-played game from Hype to make sure to avoid traps and being able to optimize it. It takes a lot sometimes to restrain, because you feel like Hunter's still at like 30 HP or 28 HP. How are you supposed to be able to race if you're missing damage from the creatures by not attacking? But when you deliberately play around traps, you're able to go for those 2-3 turn pushes. Great patience once again shown by Hype, especially because your opponent has the bow, right? There's times where you're like, oh god, I'm under a lot of pressure. I feel like I'm racing him. But you don't want to give the traps, give him the extra damage for Hunter to be able to close it out. So Hype now takes a 2-1 lead, and it's going to be the Warrior, which, the Druid, once again, well equipped to take on this Warrior, right? I would assume that if you can get a really quick start with your Ancient Watcher, it's the same as an Innervated Yeti, giving the same problems as Warrior has for about a year now, since Druid and Warriors ever lined up with Control Warrior versus that type of Druid. Yeah,
I actually think Hype's got an even better matchup in this scenario, because he has access to silencing his own Ancient Watcher. So it's another threat that can be on Armorsmith. It's another body that's going to be attacking really early on. It's just more stuff that HitGirl's got to deal with, and he's still always worried about Force of Nature Savage or in the end game.
Yeah.
But I think HitGirl was yesterday who we saw using Spectral Knight, right?
Oh, that's right. You're correct. He has 2 of them.
So I'm curious how that 5-drop, I don't know if he was running Sludge Belcher or not. I don't think we saw Sludge Belcher from him. I think we saw Spectral Knight instead. So that's directed at, it's a very different direction to take. You want your 5-drop to be extremely resilient to removal spells. And so he's losing a little bit of extra of health in the form of not having the Sludge Belcher there. So kind of curious to see how that 5-drop's going to affect things. There's actually a copy of Earthring Farseer in Hype's deck too. So Earthring Farseer, a really unique choice, but again, he wants to be activating Ancient Watchers and trying to take control of the board with them. So a card like Earthring Farseer can buy you a lot of tempo when you attack something with an Ancient Watcher and then heal it right back up.
Oh yeah, avoid it out of execute range too, especially with the Warrior, which might be his best way to deal with an early threat. HitGirl pushing away second Acolyte. I agree with that. The second Acolyte is just really greedy. You're not sure if you can synergize. Plus, you want early responses. You know what kind of deck this is. And he doesn't have Fiery War Axe to deal with his Zombie Chow, but at least there's not much follow-up in Hype's hand right now.
I'm actually really liking how Zombie Chow works in this Druid deck, because again, he's making such an early push for swing turns on the board that just a play like this is totally fine. Like if he doesn't see Fiery War Axe, I think he's at a pretty big advantage.
Oh, this is quite humorous.
Oh, the second Acolyte, I feel like it's a pretty good draw too. It's not like the best draw in the world by any means, but he'll certainly have enough cards to deal with this game. So now it's a matter of if Hype wants to give him 2 cards right now or risk a Cruel Taskmaster.
I think maybe you give him 2 cards right now, right?
Yeah, I think you give him the 2 cards right now, because the Cruel Taskmaster is just going to give him such a swing on the board.
Imagine if this Zombie Chow lives long enough that Black Knight gets it. Can you imagine?
Oh, you know what? Hyped might not even need to attack with this his hero power into this Acolyte Opinion card right now, because at 1 health he can Cruel Taskmaster it, but it doesn't give him the extra power, so he doesn't actually get to run it into the Zombie Chow. So really good hesitation here. I like the idea that he's thinking about it. I still think it's right to attack it, but I really love that he's thinking about it. This is the kind of, it's really small things like that too. If you make enough of those over the course of a game, it can add up to a really big difference. And that's the kind of player Hyped is. This is one of the reasons why he's so good, is because I think most people would just automatically attack there. But, you know, in his mind, dealing it 2 damage was to play around Cruel Taskmaster. And then when he saw he had played around it, he's like, wait a minute, he just can't Cruel Taskmaster anymore. Is it reasonable to just leave this Acolyte of Pain here and attack him for 1 instead?
Exactly. Now,
so he's going to use this to continue to take out these Acolytes. So not a lot of value got from HitGirl's Acolytes. You know, it's bought him 6 points of life and drawn him 2 cards, but and Fiery War Axe showing up just a little bit too late would have been extremely good on turn 2.
Yeah, and Zombie Chow, even though it gives 5 life back, it's already done its job. It's imposed on the board enough. It's done a little bit of damage. But now look at how safe Azure Drake comes down onto the field, or Loatheb, or whatever drop you choose to go for.
Yeah, I think I would favor...
Considering Savage Roar? What? He's hovering over it a bunch.
I think he's just counting how the damage is going to work out with the next couple turns and deciding whether he wants to Loatheb or Azure Drake.
Right, if you Savage Roar next turn, you have Loatheb to push for you. Let's see, that's 10, 18 next turn.
I think Loatheb is... I think I would have favored Azure Drake here, but I think Loatheb is really strong because it plays around Execute this way, so... Like, in this spot, the death spite's going to trigger 1 damage. It's going to whirl 1 for 1. So if he had played Azure Drake instead, it would be open to execute. And I think that's what he was trying to avoid. He's just trying to make a big push for damage. HitGirl actually going to have to Faceless Manipulator to try to get presence on the board here. Wow, that is not... it's not the kind of play he wants to make. I mean, it's not that it's not a good play. It's like he wants to be doing something else, but this is the only thing available to him.
Oh, man. You know, this is where something is so interesting that you have Wailing Soul, because you can use Keeper the Grove more flexibly now. He can remove Loatheb with his Keeper and his Defender of Argus trading in, and then drop Ancient Watcher in anticipation for next turn. He can Wailing Soul Savage Roar.
Yep.
What?
That'd be 4, 9, 10, 11 plus 8, 19 damage. This turn, though, he has 13. This turn, he has 14 potential damage, too.
Yeah, that is also true.
So this is going to be really interesting to choose what line he chooses to take, because the other thing too is if he just pushes Loatheb to the face, and let's say he just pushes Defender of Argus to the face, and even just like plays Ancient Watcher and just Wailing Souls right away, like he's playing into Brawl a little bit that way, but I don't know if he minds. So I mean, I would imagine he's going to go for Keeper of the Grove just to keep Brawl a little bit under control, but I don't have any problem with just pushing everything to the face right now. You're just putting so much pressure on your opponent. Like, you're forcing them to have Brawl or they lose the game. Wow, he's going to go for the Wailing Soul straight away, which means that almost all of this damage is going to face. Yeah, all this damage is going to face, and HitGirl needs a Brawl right now. That's not it.
Is there any way he can survive whatsoever?
Well, let's take a look, but it's not looking like it.
He can remove with a weapon, armor up. He's just constricted by too much mana. So if you remove a creature and you armor up, there's still going to be 2 creatures. At minimum, there's going to be 12, 13 damage coming your way. There's no way you can survive this.
Yeah, I don't see it happening. He needed a Brawl.
That's a turn 7 kill from Druid.
That's the power spikes that Wailing Soul is going to provide too.
What I like about what Hype chose to do here is not only because he was able to put out as much maximum pressure, but Keeper the Grove also can take out the Sludge Belcher as well. Like, it can silence it and help push through, so that way it's not complicated by damage. Say he went for Sludge Belcher and execute and then removed. It gives him a lot more versatility. So overall, well played game by Hype. These small little decisions with his Druid deck has impressed me a lot.
Yeah, the curve really providing a lot of pressure here too. And this game is a really big emphasis on how important Fiery War Axe is to this deck too. So it may have been a very small oversight to actually choose to keep Acolyte of Pain in his opening hand instead of just trying to maximize his chance to get Fiery War Axe.
Sure.
I think in this game, it was probably inconsequential because he just wouldn't have drawn Fiery War Axe. But maximizing that potential is something that's really important, and it's just a push from Hyped is able to end the game because he just goes into his turn with such a big force on his board that Savage Roar is too much damage.
Wow, 3-0 with this Druid deck. So yesterday,
it's 2-0 right now.
Oh, is it 2-0?
Yeah.
No, I think he won 3 games in a row.
Oh, did he really just win 3 games in a row? Oh my gosh, he did. Whoa, I'm out of my mind. Yeah, he literally won just 3 games in a row. That was fast.
Yeah, and he did it with his own deck that's very unconventional and surprised a lot of people. And who knew? People thought Wailing Soul was more of a card that's too situational, but Hyped used it, I think in every single game. I think he used it in every single game possible to try and get an advantage and have a 3/5 body that silences his own creatures. Well played, and now he's going to go on to lose round 2 and stays alive in the tournament. We're going to go to a break. When we come back, more action here from Battle of the Dust.